All right, so I have my rough storyboard, which means I have a script. I have a vision for what things I need to build. And I'm using the traditional analog of a claymation movie. And claymation uses these steps, right? Claymation is just when you build models out of a clay and you pose them in different ways, and then you take shots of them each time. So we start the storyboard, and that gives us our shot list. Ours is a whole lot easier than a full movie or episode because we're not changing scene, right? We're just showing a transformation all in one setting in real time. We have to decide if we're going to use characters for that transformation, for that scene. And that's anything we tell the story through. We don't need to create them with clay. We need to create them with pixels, right? And maybe your character is something you've already created. Sure enough, the character I'm using is my assignment 2 creature. So what do? I am going to make a new folder. I'm calling it assignment 3. It's going to be Hungry Hungry Dodo. And that is where my script is. I like to have my script, my rough storyboard, it's a visual script, right? I like to have that open in preview just off in the corner so I can always refer to it. If you drew it in your sketchbook, just keep your sketchbook out so you can always refer to it. That tells me what things I need to build. But maybe you already have things built. All of you are required to use something that you've already built. So instead of creating my characters, I'm going to bring them in from what I've already built. So just like we did for the proving ground, I'm going to open up my folder, and I'm going to go to assignment 2, and I'm going to go to my resubmission PNG. So this was my creature improved after it went through proving ground 1. When I first submitted it, it looked like this. And that looks pretty darn similar. But this has a little bit stronger core shadow, slightly different pose, just slightly tweaked proportions. So this is going to be the one I use. Good quality edges, all that. So how do I do that? Well, first I make a duplicate of it. Because this is the resubmission. This is going to be my character asset. So I'm going to hold down Option, save it to the desktop, so I know that it's in 2 places. Then I can bring it into my assignment 3. And I'm finished proving ground 1, so I'm going to mark that green. So now I've got a character along with my rough storyboard. What else do you need? You need to not just create the characters. If you have a setting, you need to build that set, right? Like we saw in this video, they spend a lot of time building the scenery that they're going to shoot their characters on, right? So you can build a set, you can find it from online, you can composite it, you can use vector shapes for it, you can just draw and paint it, which you're allowed to do for the first time. We can make our own pixels as part of our animation, as long as we're using something that we've already designed. What I'm going to do is go to my assignment 1, and my set, I'm going to use my resubmission. This is what I think I improved a little bit, right? Because the river goes all the way through. This is going to be my backdrop for my animation. So what do? I hold down Option, I drag it to the desktop so it exists in 2 places, and then I move it into my assignment 3 folder. So now I have character, asset, setting, asset. Now I'm going to create a folder called additional assets. And I'm going to find things from Pixabay searches that I think could be useful, right? So let's look at this. My assignment, or my my setting has this tree. Now, this is a backdrop, but unfortunately it's a flattened backdrop, right? So what I really need for my setting is a backdrop that has all the layers in it. So I can isolate certain things like that tree. So I'm going to go back to assignment 1. This is for my story. And I'm going to find the most recent resubmitted landscape, PSD, and hold down Option and put that there. Drag that, duplicate it onto the desktop. This is a much bigger file. Bring that into assignment 3 because this one, so I actually don't need the flattened one. This one, when I open it up in Photoshop, this is a good place to start. This will help me determine the different assets that I have because my character moves in my story, but the thing that transforms is my setting. And the first thing, I gotta take care of this quick and log. So when I'm thinking of my setting, because my setting needs to be dynamic, it needs to be more than just something that's behind my character and my character transforms, because I'm transforming my setting, it's helpful to use the multi-layered version. My multi-layered version has atmosphere. It's like a smoke machine for the set. It's got this dodging and burning layer, which honestly I'll probably let me tone it down. It's not about these animations looking perfect. It's about kind of showing the story, right? So sometimes we have to clean up our assets. So I might just get rid of this, but I do want this smoke. That's going to be helpful. Then I've got a little character asset up on the bridge there. That might be fun to use, even though it's not on my storyboard. I need that rock there, that's foreground. I need that bush. So now what I'm thinking is if this is my set and my creature needs to go into the set like this, right? Then I'm going to merge it with its shadows. There we go. And I have my character. Let's make it the deeper sea foam. So I have my character and it's on set. I have to know what's in front of the character and I need to know what's behind the character so that when I animate and move this character around, it occupies the space believably, right? Now I'm going to make my character much, much bigger. So I'll show you how I do that. Now, there are lots of little things that I composited in, like grass between the toes and the rocks in the foreground. So instead, I am going to note the big elements. So in red, this is the tree that's going to get pulled out of the ground. And when it gets pulled out of the ground, what gets revealed? So what I'm going to do is actually duplicate this tree layer, but leave the ground. So Command J. So that I have a tree without ground. And now I'm going to go back to that layer. So that's my tree. I'm going to have to add roots to it. And on this one, I am going to get rid of the tree. Cut it down so that there is an empty setting where that tree doesn't exist, right? And then if I want to clean it up a little bit, I use my compositing knowledge. Remember, it's going to be different for all of you. For instance, I can just grab this part, and then I can use clone stamp at 100% opacity, big and soft edged, sample from all layers, and grab some of this grass and just paint it in. Doesn't need to be super clean because this is going to be just at screen resolution. Then I can hit Command D to deselect, and then I can soften these edges. That's why we use a soft brush. And we don't want it to look too copy-pasty anywhere, so I'm using Option. I'm going to carry that shadow through, and then maybe I take the opacity down with this soft brush, and I use Clone Stamp to extend some of these textures. This is to help solve the issues in my setting. Where I don't need to be as concerned with lighting directions and all of that as I was in my assignments. So now I have a tree, and then I have a frame without the tree. You guys see how that works? Makes sense. Now without the tree, I might decide, you know what? What's making up those? I might clean it up a little bit. I don't like this background moss on the rock. So I might use my clone stamp and just get rid of it within that layer. Tone it down. I might use burn to darken it. Burn it down. So that when that tree gets pulled up, there's nothing behind it that's super distracting. Let's use clone stamp again. Let's get some of the brightness in there. Some of the shadows. There we go. All right, so now there it is with the tree, without the tree. I'm already kind of building my assets for my setting. And then there's something I notice with the tree. I need to get rid of this chunk. So I'm cleaning my assets and also cleaning up anything I'm going to animate with. So if I duplicate the tree, Command J, and then I hit Command T and I move it, right? This tree is going to get pulled up and rotated. I need to make sure it looks good that way. So there's little things that need to be handled, like the edge here and that cutout. So what I'll do is I'll clean it up just with my lasso. I'm not even that worried about having feathering on it, but I'll go ahead and put a 1 pixel feather because I'm still at much higher resolution, being that this is my full print assignment. Actually, no, I like that. Let's get rid of it there. So I have to kind of refine these edges so it can get moved and not look terrible. Yeah, that looks pretty good. This is a little wonky, so I'm going to trim that. So the setting, I have to figure out what things are props on the stage and what things are actually just a backdrop that I can merge together. And then there's this hole right here. That's a highlight, but it's such a bright highlight. And of course the lighting would change as this thing moves in space, so I can get rid of that. And you're just trying to get a nice clean prop. What else? The base of it. I'm going to slim that down. There we go. Okay, so now this is my tree. Let's see how that tree works. Duplicate it, transform it. I put it back on the set. I hope I still have some holes I need to cut out of it. But it can go right there. So let's see, where were those other holes? One way to do this is to use your magic wand with contiguous unchecked and just click on the background. And it will show you everything that needs to be trimmed from that asset. Sometimes they're like semi-transparent. So what do? I hold down Shift and I can just draw and add to the selection to delete. So within the branches, trees are some of the more difficult props to work with because of all the edges. Anything else?